Taxonomy is the branch of science that deals with the classification of organisms. And Carolus Linnaeus is the scientist who is considered the father of modern taxonomy. He classified organisms based on their physical appearance and categorized them into two kingdoms. They were either a plant or an animal. He's also attributed with coming up with a system of naming these organisms known as binomial nomenclature. And binomial means two, and nomenclature means name, so using two parts to name an organism. An organism can be classified according to its symmetry. So one type of symmetry is asymmetrical, in which if you were to divide the organism, it would not look equal on both sides. Bilateral symmetry means the two sides would look alike, and radial symmetry is when the parts will radiate from a center, and we could actually divide this organism more than two times into equal parts. In order to classify an organism using binomial nomenclature, we have to be able to classify their genus and species. And these two are what we use to classify any organism. So for example, if we wanted to know or figure out the binomial nomenclature for humans, also known as Homo sapiens, we are classified under the domain Eukarya, the kingdom Animalia, the phylum Chordata, the class Mammalia, the order Primates, the family Hominidae, the genus Homo, and the species Sapiens. The genus and species together gives you the binomial nomenclature of the organism. There are three main domains that we can classify organisms under. Archaea contains the archaeobacteria, and these are also known as ancient bacteria. Just bacteria, which will contain our eubacteria, eu means true, and eukarya, which will contain all other organisms. These domains can be broken down into 6 kingdoms. Archaeobacteria, some examples of those would be extremophiles, meaning organisms or bacteria that live in extreme environments. Eubacteria, and that's common bacteria that we're familiar with, so E. coli, Salmonella, and some STDs. Fungi, which consist of mushroom, yeasts, and mold. Protista, which would consist of euglenas, amoebas, and protozoans. Animalia, which would consist of things like birds, cats, fish, humans, and plantae, which would be pine trees, grasses, and moss. So the 3 domains are further broken down into kingdoms, and then those kingdoms are further broken down. In order to see an evolutionary relationship between organisms, we can look at what we call a cladogram. And when you look on a cladogram, when organisms are closer together, that means that they're more closely related to one another. So for example, if we looked at this cladogram, which shows the evolution up until chimps, at the end of these lines are going to be the organisms that you're looking at. So here we have a hagfish, here we have a perch, salamander, lizard, pigeon, mouse, and chimps. So these are the organisms we're interested in. And these little lines in between them are the traits that evolved, or adaptations that evolved, to make these different. So for example, when we go from a hagfish to a perch, or when we look at that relationship, we see the evolution of jaws. So hagfish did not have jaws, but everything above it does have jaws. Going from perch to salamander, we see the evolution of lungs. So everything above the perch has lungs, everything below does not. So the perch and hagfish do not have lungs. Between the salamander and lizards, we see claws and nails. So lizards up will have claws and nails. Salamanders, perches, and hagfish will not have claws and nails. With pigeons, we see the evolution of feathers, but that's only unique to the pigeons, not the mice or the chimps. So you would draw that trait on this line. And here, we see between pigeon and mouse, we see the evolution of fur and mammary glands. So birds are not mammals, so the mice and chimps do have fur and do have mammary glands. All of these other organisms do not.